Howdy, and welcome to LeeReads, where I talk about the books I've been reading and enjoying lately. Today's video is my December reading wrap-up, so if you will allow me, we can briefly reach back into 2022 so I can finish telling you about what I read last year. And the cat is here. This is Lookout. Early in the month of December, I finished the Hawthorn Legacy and the Final Gambit, which are books 2 and 3 in the Inheritance Games trilogy. The Inheritance Games is about a teenage girl who comes from poverty, who gets added onto the will of this very mysterious billionaire, but it comes with the stipulation. If she is going to inherit most of his assets and his money, she has to survive living in his sprawling mansion for 1 year. And when 1 year comes to pass, she will have earned the right to inherit everything. Meanwhile, his 4 grandsons, his 2 daughters, and several other people are left very confused as to why this nobody is inheriting almost everything. And there are definitely some attempts to stop her from succeeding in living in the house for a year. So that's basically book 1. And books 2 and 3 were still grappling with all of the mysteries and puzzles that are set up in the first book. The first book is very much about problem solving. The fact that she was chosen in itself is supposed to be a giant puzzle to the grandsons to figure out. The plot of these books are fun and there's more things to puzzle out, but it got really off the charts. I didn't think that books 2 and 3 were as strong as book 1. I still really enjoyed book 1, and the series overall, I liked it. If the premise of book 1 intrigues you, I think it's worth trying it, but just know that at least for me, it started to suspend disbelief a little bit by the ends of book 2 and 3. But still, it was fun. If you like puzzles, I say go for it. Next, I read something with a bit of a different tone. I picked this up at a mystery thriller bookstore that I went to for a book signing. The Haunting of Maddy, Clare by Simone St. James is my first novel by Simone St. James. This novel is set in the 1920s, just after World War I. The main character is trying to get by doing temp jobs, usually as a secretary, and she gets hired to be the secretary of this man who investigates ghosts and sightings and is determined to prove their existence. This particular ghost that they're trying to learn more about does not respond very well to men and grows enraged if anyone but a woman goes in to try to talk to it. So they hire Sarah, the main character, to assist. And they basically wind up being set on a mission by the angry ghost herself to determine what happened to her. And if they don't figure out who killed her and why and where her body is, basically this ghost wants to keep the investigator, Sarah, and the regular assistant, Matthew, have to team up to stop bad things from happening. I found this book very, very creepy, not over the top horror, but quite creepy. Small town, everybody has secrets. What's the history here? Sort of vibes. You know, they're the outsiders coming in. People don't really want to talk to them. We have this added layer of this ghost that not everybody believes in. And the time pressure of the journalist may not survive this encounter if they don't hurry up and find the answers also before they get thrown out of town. So a lot of different angles going on in the Haunting of Maddy, Clare. I quite liked it, and there is a touch of a romance in there, but it's definitely not a focus. Last month, as a treat to myself, I also reread JARAN, which is one of my favorite novels. It's by Kate Elliott. Many years ago, my dog chewed the cover off the front, so yeah. JARAN is a science fiction that feels like a fantasy because the main setting of the story takes place in a slightly less advanced civilization, but there's this whole backdrop of this alien empire that has come in and dominated humanity. Tess is the reluctant heir of her brother, who is the Duke of Earth and a couple of surrounding planets. He, years ago, staged a rebellion against the Chapelli, the alien overlords, so to speak, that failed. So humanity is still under the alien yoke, but yet for reasons known only to this alien civilization, they decided to give her brother this dukedom of Earth and several surrounding planets. So as Tess is traveling back to the main human stronghold planet, she hitches a ride with some alien merchants, winds up discovering that they are illegally smuggling things onto an interdicted planet that has a more primitive human society on it, that they are supposed to be hands off, letting it grow and flourish and technology build up over time on its own. Except apparently the Chapelli aliens are, and Tess is determined to find out what the heck they think that they're doing, because they're breaking all sorts of laws and stepping on human toes yet again. She winds up getting separated from the aliens that she's spying on, picked up by a hunter-gatherer type of people. They're called the JARAN. They take her in, and the adventure continues from there. I love this book. The first time I read it, it was one of those that I thought about a lot afterwards, and I think it's how Kate Elliott wrote the societies, these power dynamics between humans and the aliens, but also intersocietal things like how people in the different cultures, men and women, respect each other, different lines of power, how Tess as a stranger comes in and has certain areas where she's very vulnerable, certain areas where she can take charge, and how it morphs in with the JARAN's current plans. Of course, you can't forget, as civilizations grow, there are powerful, charismatic, determined individuals who have their own ideas of how things should go, and Tess winds up coming face to face with one of these individuals within this JARAN tribe that sets off some sparks. I'll stop rambling. Next, I was able to pick up another highly anticipated novel, A Fire Endless by Rebecca Ross. This is the second book in a duology that begins with A River Enchanted that I really enjoyed last year. My only complaint with this novel was that it was very fast-paced. I wish that we had gotten to slow down just a little bit, sit with the characters and the new positions that they're in. And of course, as we're dealing with the repercussions of what happened and a continuation of some plot threads, there are some more issues that arrive. But if you don't know, A River Enchanted follows several characters, but mainly a bard named Jack. Jack has been off of the island for the last 10 years or so, training in how to be a bard, because in this world, music has magic, but he is summoned back by his clan chief in order to help solve a mystery. There have been young girls from his clan that are going missing, and they need his help to figure out why. And if they need a bard's help, that means it must have something to do with magic. So that's what triggers the first book. It was a strong continuation of the duology. I didn't enjoy A Fire Endless quite as much as I enjoyed A River Enchanted, mostly because of the pacing. But I thought that there was still a lot of really good character growth, and it was a very satisfactory conclusion to the duology. I highly recommend both. Next, I picked up a cozy fantasy read that I've seen recommended around the subreddit r Cozy Fantasy. It is called Tempest in a Teapot. Again, sort of a Victorian era polite society, but there is some magic in this world. It is about a baker who winds up at this Viscount's dinner party. Unbeknownst to the guest, the Viscount is using a magical teapot to determine who he's going to marry, and the teapot chooses her. But no one at the party and the Viscount doesn't realize that she is not nobility, she is just a baker. So she is dealing with this utter shock as she is trying to tell the Viscount the truth and getting to know him a little bit better. It turns out that she believes someone is trying to kill him, so she gets embroiled with that. It's a very cute, light read, very sweet. I didn't get extremely attached to the characters, so I wouldn't say that it's a new favorite, but it had some good humor in it, and it has a bad guy in it that keeps trying to do bad things and does a very bad job of it. So if you like that kind of humor, I would say that this would be a nice sort of palate cleanser kind of read. Then I finally read Age of Ash by Daniel Abraham, my first solo Daniel Abraham read. I have read The Expanse, which he is a co-author of, under the pen name James S.A. Corey, but I hadn't read his solo fantasy. Age of Ash is the first book of a new trilogy, And it's really about a city called Kithamer, but each novel in the trilogy is going to be focused on a different character and what's going on with them at about the same time. So I expect that in each novel we're going to get new perspectives and learn more about the story and the world building. So that aspect of the story really appealed to me. The main character that we're following in this book is a thief. She is out for revenge after the death of someone that she cares about. Revenge stories have never really been my favorite, and so I found myself not connecting with Alice as much as I might have another type of character. However, the events that transpire in this story, because you start the novel, the prologue of it is like a chapter that's occurring after the events of this book. So you know that the stuff in the book is getting you to this point, and that sort of story structure really intrigues me. Another novel that did that super well is Dark of the West by Joanne Hathaway. So I definitely will be continuing with the series. It's a very kind of grim and gritty medieval style world, and we're dealing with thieves and the city underbelly. But I think that over the rest of the books, this is the scope of the city and the characters will probably expand quite a bit. Then the last book that I read at the very end of the year, because it came in my adult fairy loot box, Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries. Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries is about an academic named Emily Wilde. She is a young tenured scholar at a university, and she travels to very wild, desolate, subarctic island to learn more about the local types of fairy life that are there, because she is writing this encyclopedia. And though she's young, she has traveled the world, she's been all sorts of places and has had various encounters with the local fairy life. So she expects that she's going to be able to find the fairies when she gets there. She's staying in a small rustic village, and they don't necessarily appreciate her poking her nose into the fairy lore because they're worried about the repercussions from the fairies. So she's not getting very far, and then her academic rival sort of shows up to help, and he has motivations of his own, and the story unfolds from there. I read the novel in one sitting. I'm not sure if this is technically epistolary. It's not letters, but it's her journal entries. So the novel is from the perspective of her sitting down at the end of the day and writing about what happened throughout the day, sometimes having entries from other people written in the journal as well. I really liked it. I just swallowed it all in one sitting. Definitely there's going to be a sequel. I wouldn't call the ending a cliffhanger, but it really left me wanting more. I wasn't ready for my journey with these characters to end yet. There are some fun twists on tropes within the story. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil anything. If you enjoy a story that feels a little bit like a fairy tale, if you like stories that have the fae in them, and though there are dark moments in the story, the story itself doesn't get really dark. It's still very lighthearted. Then I recommend that you pick up Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries. And those are the books that I read in the month of December. Did you read any of these? Are you interested in picking up any of these now that I have mentioned them? If you haven't told me already, what was your favorite book that you read in 2022? Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your time. Please give this video a like or share it with a friend or subscribe. And as always, don't forget to support your local library. Thanks.